This episode of Gators Breakdown is brought to you by BetterHelp. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/gators. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/gators. Support for Gators Breakdown is also brought to you by Manscaped. Don't take a chance while trimming below the waist. Take 20% off. Get worldwide free shipping with the code Gators20 at manscaped.com.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at GatorDave_SEC. Oh, not the good news we wanted to have in this episode. The Gators have their first scrimmage on Thursday, and out of that scrimmage, we get the unfortunate news. Justus Boone, defensive lineman, edge player, goes down with an injury. We were hoping the news on Friday would not be as bad, but unfortunately, it is. Justus Boone will be out for the season, tore his ACL in the scrimmage. We'll get into the details of that. Billy Napier goes into how it happened and what will happen in this rotation up front on defense without Justus Boone. So we'll get into that on this episode of Gators Breakdown. Also, we put a kind of timeline on it right here on Gators Breakdown, and the decision has been made, according to Billy Napier, about a quarterback, but not announced to the media. I don't think it'd be any surprise that it will be Graham Mertz when it's announced, but Billy Napier going about it a different way and not announcing it today in his press conference the day after the first scrimmage. So that'll be another kind of topic we'll get into on this episode of Gators Breakdown, but also kind of look back at the first scrimmage with some news and notes from there as well. But man, what a bummer. I got to hang out with Justus Boone a little bit. You guys have seen the new Florida Victorious video I've been sharing out, kind of the together video. And I got to spend a few hours with Justus Boone, Montrell Johnson, and Derek Wingo. And as I mentioned, Boone spoke to the media last week as well. And you can tell he's kind of really come out of his shell a little bit. I mean, one of the most genuine players I've encountered lately right there in Gainesville. And man, after that, and then, just seeing this kind of, spending a few hours with him, making a little bit of a connection, talking football, talking life. Just a player. I'm going to the kid, the person first, but also hate losing the player of Justus Boone. I thought he was kind of just set up for maybe a breakout season right here in the SEC, but unfortunately, that will not happen with the torn ACL here. So hopefully speedy recovery. Billy Napier says the surgery will be in a couple of weeks, so hopefully speedy recovery, and we're talking about him being that dominant player for the 2024 season, but we'll get into it a little more, as I said, what Billy Napier had to say as well. But before we get there, everybody hit that like button. I know you don't like the topic there of the injury, but the work we're doing right here, Gators Breakdown on YouTube, live episode right here on this Friday. A little bit different on a Friday, of course. I try to throw out episodes early week, midweek, so they get a little more play time. But with all the news coming out, I knew there was going to be an episode today with Billy Napier talking, and the day after the first scrimmage. So hit that like button, subscribe right here to Gators Breakdown if you haven't done so yet, whether you're watching us live on YouTube, watching the replay on YouTube, listening to the replay in podcast form. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform as well if you haven't done so yet. Hey, look, you get those live notifications when we go live like this right here on YouTube as well. And then, of course, Gators Breakdown Plus. A lot of stuff going on there, of course, with the season right on the horizon. You get extra episodes, Discord chat, ad-free episodes on Gators Breakdown Plus podcast feed, Q&A, giveaways, custom shout-outs for all access members. Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Link is in the description right there to join Gators Breakdown Plus. All right, so let's get to it. And Justus Boone, torn ACL, out for a couple of weeks, Billy Napier said. And just how it happened, too, really makes you shake your head. Did it celebrating after a play was over. Freak accident. Billy Napier said, look, emotion and passion are part of it. You're not going to change the way guys celebrate and all. It's a freak accident. That's all it is. And look, it stings that's how it happened. I mean, look, there's no good way for it to happen. Now, no non-contact, how a lot of these ACL injuries happen, of course, so non-contact, celebrating. Sometimes you can be engaged with another player, turn the wrong way. So it wasn't in the action of football, but you really hated that, comes with a celebration. But there's no good way for this to happen there. But it stings. And then no other ways to sugarcoat it, just for the kid and the situation itself. But let's get to Billy Napier and what he had to say on the unfortunate injury to Justus Boone.
I would tell you this is one of the more challenging parts of the job for me, relative to having a great relationship with a young man and then observing him work and change his life as a person and as a football player, and not just the production on the field that Boone brings to our team, but more importantly, his presence as a leader. And I do think this will galvanize our team. I think this is a guy they really love and care about, and will want to do their part to make up for his absence on the field. I think that we have that level of respect and accountability amongst our players and team. But we're going to rally around Boone.
There you go, rallying around the players. I said, if from what I saw personally for a few hours that I got to hang out with him, if that's any indication of how he is in front of his teammates and stuff, no doubt about it. He's a locker room guy. Hopefully these guys do rally around him, and they use this as a rallying cry. Now you hope everything was kind of going swimmingly in that fashion anyway, that they're just ready for the season to get started, or we're getting ready for Utah. But there are rallying moments that can happen in a fall camp and practice and getting ready for a season and throughout the season. And this just might be one for the Gators. We've talked about the depth up front for the Gators. Let's get to the football side of it and how much deeper they are up front. And thankfully so. You have this happen, and Florida still got a lot of names, and Florida still got some depth at this position. The defensive end, the edge, he was kind of going to float around a little bit. You heard him talk last week. We featured his press conference right here on Gators Breakdown, and there was going to be times he was standing. There was going to be times with his hand in the dirt, and dropping back in coverage. His role was expanding this year, and unfortunately, we would not get to see that. But what about people we do get to see him? He was in a battle with Tyreek Sapp anyway. Tyreek Sapp's going to be the first name that we bring up in here. And as I mentioned on Gators Breakdown Plus in the chat last week, we just haven't heard Tyreek Sapp's name a whole lot. You guys remember a year ago, if you listen to Gators Breakdown, coming out of spring and what I was hearing in fall, Tyreek Sapp was a guy name circled for me. I expected this big breakout, and we didn't necessarily get that this year, but maybe, as I said, maybe I was a year early on that for Tyreek Sapp. So it's going to be in that rotation. Maybe if Boone was down, Tyreek would be standing up, or opposite form of fashion right there for this defense. I don't know exactly how it's working out, but Billy Napier does kind of shed some light on what will happen on the defensive front with Justus Boone out, and who else could step up. And one more player, you hear the question asked, and the guy who you've heard his name, you've heard the whispers day by day. Now in the second week of fall camp, Jack Pyburn went out there and had himself an excellent scrimmage. Napier goes into all that right here.
I think you've got the two true freshmen. Obviously, their role will increase, right? Kelby Collins and Cameron James. But there's a number of players from a grouping standpoint that will be a factor. Tyreek Sapp, even Caleb Banks to some degree is a versatile player. And Jack Pyburn can play both sides. He can play Jack and F. So we've got confidence in the players. We're just going to have a little less experience out there than maybe, Justus brings some experience to the table, and leadership in general. So the challenge here will be replacing that presence, and we're going to do as much as we can to try to keep him connected to that position group, that unit, and the team. But I think the big thing here is that there'll be a few more things to learn for some of these players, but in general, will be some adjustments that need to be made.
You mentioned Jack Pyburn. What have you seen out of him from the time you've been here into where he's at right now?
Yeah, Jack's one of the more impressive young men that we have, in terms of work ethic, self-discipline. He's very motivated. Jack's one of those guys that is at his best when the pads are on. You know, he is a motor. He's tough. He's physical. He plays with effort. He's a smart player. He has the respect of his teammates. He has the respect of the staff. And this guy had probably one of the best off seasons, if not the best, of any player on our team, right, in terms of body composition, all the metrics that we test. He had made significant improvements. So there is, you know, he's another good example. He's got that Gator in him. That's what I would tell you, right? So Jack is he's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I don't think I've heard Billy Napier say that before about a player. Quote, he's got that Gator in him. I mean, so, hey, great praise right there for Jack Pyburn, you know, the second-year player from just down the road from me. I went to school in Bowles. I live around that area in Jacksonville, so knew about Pyburn, you know, followed his career a little bit here in high school, and I know it looked like an Auburn-Miami battle throughout the recruiting process. Billy Napier gets hired. Florida comes in late, and he just makes a short track down to Gainesville from Jacksonville. And hey, he even gets to keep the school colors. He was orange and blue right there at Bowles in Jacksonville, and keeps the orange and blue right here in Gainesville for the Gators as well. But just a player that you started hearing the whispers of his name a bit. 3 sacks in the scrimmage is the word that has kind of been confirmed all throughout there. So, but also just a guy who's been just kind of putting in the work and putting his name in to get some serious playing time this year. You know, had a year of adjustment last year, some special teams out there for Pyburn. So I'm in the bowl game a bit as well. But then, you know, now it's time to put all the experience from year one to use, and certainly seems to be doing so. And a versatile player, as you heard Billy Napier say, he can line up on either side, and just really looking forward to kind of him living up to at least that expectation of kind of being the weight room guy and putting in all the work necessary and letting it pay off on the field. He's not going to I believe we had the story here in Jacksonville. He gets up like so early in the morning and a workout warrior. He was a wrestler in high school too, so you got that background in him as well. So, you know, I don't know how outstanding of a player he'll eventually end up being. I'm not saying he can or can't be. I'm just, you know, just kind of looking down the road. But right now, maybe, and with Boone out, going to have to be a rotational piece right here on this defensive front. So we zoom out a little bit from Jack Pyburn, but high praise for him, a player I think we'll certainly hear from a good bit this year. But kind of the way it was described to me yesterday, you know, Boone, Tyreek Sapp, you know, the starter at end, those guys fighting for that spot, but then Jackson, McClellan, Banks, some combo of those guys in the interior. You even heard Billy Napier say Banks can be even more flexible, and they slide him out a little bit if they need to be to go along with Princely at edge. So Sapp, Jackson, McClellan, Banks, Princely. Look, that's still a really good front to me. And don't get me wrong, I'd love for Boone to be out there. And like I said, where there wouldn't be any kind of drop off between him and Sapp or him and whoever else, you know, that they want to rotate in there, you know. So that's where it hurts, is if now would there be a drop off when you have to go down a level. And certainly, you know, we're getting rave reviews right now from somebody like Jack Pyburn, but then, you know, with Tyreek Sapp, you know, coming along as well and fighting for that starting role there with Boone, you know, you do wonder, is there a drop off at all when it comes to this? You know, you probably had Sapp and Boone, and maybe Pyburn and Boone, you know, fighting it out too. So those 3 guys, did you have all 3 guys playing at the same level? I mean, we know Sapp a little more experience than Pyburn, Boone a lot more experience there, but now you lose that experience. Somebody like Pyburn's going to have to now. You just got to show up on the scene and use the first year of experience of just being a freshman, acclimating yourself to the game, but not something like, you know, Sapp, who was on the field a good bit last year, but now, hey, opportunity presents itself right here. So really looking forward to, you know, just the development there and seeing if there's a drop off right there in production. But to go along, you know, it's more Watson, Will Norman, his name's coming up as well in kind of that second grouping right there on the defensive front. Collins, of course. Billy, speaking of injuries a bit right here with Boone, Collins should be coming back as well, Billy Napier said in his press conference today. At the same time, Kelby Collins kind of in that 10-day window right now and maybe sooner rather than later is what Billy Napier said. So Kelby Collins, of course, now when injuries like this happen, true freshman or not, you come up the depth chart. So that's where you're looking. A lot of Billy Napier mentioned the freshman that's going to have to step up as well. So Cam James is another name right there from Gainesville. Going to have to make his name known throughout at least depth pieces throughout fall camp and practice throughout, and maybe he can make something of this opportunity as well. But still, the front: Sapp, Jackson, McClellan, Banks, Princely, really good front in my mind. Takes a hit right here with Boone, but it doesn't have to be a huge hit with the players Florida has right now. And now it just makes it imperative. You got to even more now. You got to stay healthy on the defensive front and the SEC and how physical this league is and how physical your first opponent is with Utah as well. We're going to see it. We're going to see it early, especially in the first month of the season, basically when Florida plays Utah and Kentucky, two very physical teams that are just going to run right at you. We're going to see how this defensive line holds up early on. So at least this injury happened early enough in fall camp. Florida can make some adjustments right here, learn what you have. And we'll hear Billy Napier kind of go into it as well, about the scrimmage and kind of where they're at right now. Next step is really solidifying the two deep. This injury happens soon enough in fall camp where you don't have to readjust too much. And as I said, you kind of knew where this was leaning anyway with the main cogs and the main names up front, but unfortunately, it's going to be without Justus Boone. So other injuries, of course, Dante Zanders, while we're on the injury front right here, and the unfortunate news with Justus Boone, we'll keep going down. Nothing else serious coming from Billy Napier's press conference in the day after the scrimmage. Dante Zanders tied in that 10-day window as he's dealing with a lower body injury. Billy Napier said Kelby Collins pretty much the same, but quote on him maybe sooner rather than later. And then we'll go through the guys who did not participate in the scrimmage later on, but Scooby Williams, Jason Marshall, Lindale Hudson should be back tomorrow. We record this on Friday. They should be back on Saturday. Devin Moore still in that, quote, return to play protocol. So last time we got together and we were discussing injuries in Devin Moore, that was still the same stage he was in. So he was not in the scrimmage yesterday either. We heard from him last week, about a week ago, and then all of a sudden now he's missing practice. So we'll see. He doesn't seem too serious, but Billy Napier's still labeling him in that same way he did before, quote, return to play protocol. So we'll see what that means now for Devin Moore and some of these injuries as well. But hey, plenty more to get into on this episode of Gators Breakdown. Quarterback talk, and we'll take a look back at the scrimmage that was on Thursday as well. But before we do, let's hear a word from Gators Breakdown sponsors. Gators Breakdown is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. I've seen firsthand the difference therapy can make with a family member, and the relationship is now better, stronger than ever before. It's hard to take care of life challenges if you don't take care of yourself first, and that's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp brings the therapy to you. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Gators today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gators. Support for Gators Breakdown is also brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code Gators20 at manscaped.com. And look, guys, it starts as soon as you get it in the mail. That beautiful box comes in and lets you know you open it up. The modern man is a man who takes care of himself. Manscaping isn't just for live special occasions. It's a requirement for optimal health, superior hygiene, healthy self-esteem. You now have the right tools for a safe and precise grooming in the hard-to-navigate sensitive groin area, plus post-trimming products to keep your boys dry and fresh all day long. I mean, you open up the box and you get that nice little message right there from Manscaped. The box of the Performance Package 4.0. That includes the Lawnmower 4.0, the 4th generation waterproof trimmer. Got that ceramic blade to help reduce grooming accidents. Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker, a nose and ear trimmer that actually works. The Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner are here to take your ball game to the next level. And then Manscaped even gives you 2 free gifts in the Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code Gators20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus worldwide free shipping with the code Gators20 at manscaped.com. Going back to his injuries right quick, Billy Napier did say they were being overly cautious. And I know there was a list of names there. Boone really being the only serious one right now. How Xanders has missed some time and still about 10 days away. So I guess somewhat serious. But looking at what Florida's doing at tight end right now, Aldous Boardingham, hopefully Odom comes along as well. But Boardingham certainly, he's been limited somewhat this past week as well. But nothing, he's saying there's being overly cautious right now. So that's good to hear. Nothing else that's major as far as injuries go right now for the Gators. And hopefully it stays that way coming off the unfortunate news about Boone. So let's keep it going right here. And about quarterback, no announcement on the quarterback. I thought we may get it. I think Billy Napier even brought it up before he was even asked, because I know you guys want to know about quarterback. And everybody was kind of putting this Friday press conference after the first scrimmage as kind of the timeline of when it would be announced. Napier says there is a process. A decision will be coming soon. Wants to meet with the players first, meet with the team first, but, quote, we've seen enough. We want to go through a process with the players and the team before we announce it to the media. So there you go. I mean, the decision's been made. I think we all know it's going to be Graham Mertz, who, by all accounts, has just really turned it on this fall camp, has looked better than he did the last time we all saw him in the spring game, a little more fluid. The offense is coming together, does not look lost. He's got a command of the offense, and we'll get into the scrimmage in here in just a second, and probably why, even extending why he is the guy, the number one quarterback right here. But, no worry that this is not we don't know who the quarterback is. Situation here, right here after the first scrimmage. Just as and guys, we know Napier's style by now. He's going to do it in a respectful manner. So he's going to meet with the guys. Now, you probably could say, okay, well, could have met with them this morning, met with the team this morning. Well, they got to practice today. They were already going to meet today anyway. So next time we get Billy Napier, whenever that is, I'm sure it'll be early next week. That may be when we get the official announcement of a starting quarterback for the Gators. And I think we all know by now that is looking like it's going to be Graham Mertz, and I'm feeling better about it. Getting about where you guys know I put it out last week. I'm feeling better about this team, feeling good about what we're hearing about him and his command and control of the offense. Not doing too much out there as far as forcing the issue in this offense, and we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes, but feeling better about it. But no official word coming out of the press conference for a starting quarterback. All right, let's go. Let's go to the. Well, no, you know what? Let's go. I'll go through some more notes of the press conference right here through. After the press conference on the first scrimmage on Thursday, Napier met with the media on Friday. We'll get his thoughts on the scrimmage too, but some more notes coming through here. Special teams was brought up, and that's something we've glossed over right here on Gators Breakdown. My fault a little bit. Not much out there, and it's one reason he's been asked about it, but did say the true freshman now. Eugene Wilson, Andy Jean, Andy Mizell getting work in special teams right now to go along with Ricky Pearsall and Trevor Etienne. I still think those are your main cogs now, but he did make sure to stress, and this is no surprise, I don't think. No surprise that Trey Wilson, I know I keep saying Eugene, and you guys call me out for it, and I deserve it. But for whatever reason, I cannot get past Eugene. But Trey Wilson, he's going to be a major player in special teams for the Gators. Billy Napier pretty much even said his name in the list of freshmen and then came back around to that to Wilson when he was talking about special teams and putting it on the heels of Ricky Pearsall and Trevor Etienne. Well, I still expect those two guys to be probably the main cogs, at least to start the season, especially on the road at Utah. But we'll see. I mean, maybe Eugene Wilson is just so explosive enough that you cannot not have the ball in his hands. So that may be a part of it too. But any combination of those three guys, I mean, there's got to be a lot of trust in Ricky Pearsall and his approach to the game. Trevor Etienne, as soon as they put him in last year at kickoff return, it got better. He makes things happen. Great vision back there, that kickoff return role. And now the question becomes, while we're talking about injuries a little bit this episode, how often do you want to put those guys in harm's way? Now, kickoff return, there's a lot of touchbacks going on. Punts, there's a lot of fair catches. So there's not a ton of opportunity, but I do believe, if this offense, while I feel better about where it is, there's still a question of how explosive it can be, how big play capable it's going to be. Well, if you can get better field position out of it, and instead of these 10, 12 play drives, if you're starting near midfield a bit more, because if you got Pearsall and Etienne back there and Eugene Wilson back there, well, you cut the opportunities for mistakes down. 10, 12 play drives. We'll kind of get into it with the offense a little bit. I don't know how much success you're going to have in the SEC game in and game out of that. You're still going to have the big plays. Billy Napier's offense has big plays, but any way you can help the offense, if you can start at the 50 and these 10, 12 play drives turn into 6, 8 play drives, you're limiting mistakes. You're limiting opportunities for mistakes. You're limiting opportunities for turnovers to happen on offense. So special teams can go a long way in just the complementary football aspect of it and helping an offense that may have to string together play after play after play and keep the chains moving, and maybe not have as many big plays because of, missing Anthony Richardson's explosion back there in the run game. How much does that affect the big playability of this offense? I still think it will be there. I still think it will be there some. But any way you can help this offense get near midfield, maybe that's why you have Pearsall back there, Etienne back there, Eugene Wilson back there. So we'll see. It's interesting. I have no issue with it. I believe you don't coach scared with injuries. You've heard me say that plenty of times before. You go out there and put the ball in the hands of the best players. So if that's Ricky Pearsall and Trevor Etienne on special teams, Eugene Wilson comes along the way as well, then so be it. Especially if it helps your offense out on a consistent basis. But we'll see. We'll see. I like what I heard about it, and those names that are continuing to be said about special teams in the return game. So we'll see what that means for the Gators this season. Offensive line. Billy Napier was asked about the offensive line as well, and says he feels better about the depth and the talent they have on the interior. They're deeper there, and especially comparing that to offensive tackle, where he says they got the 2 offensive tackles. They feel good about the 2 starting ones. But they are trying to figure out that third offensive tackle. And that had kind of been put on hold because of Lindell Hudson being in concussion protocol, involved in a car wreck, and then just nothing serious, but had to be through concussion protocol. And we already know how serious that is just on the football side of things. But now just in life, well, it translates on the football field. You still got to go through that concussion protocol. You don't want to put him in harm's way. So still trying to figure out that third tackle there. Competition and growth is what Billy Napier's looking for there in this offensive line, but did give a lot of praise to the interior of the offensive line and how good he feels about that right now. And starting 2 offensive tackles to go along, Damian George, Austin Barber, but right now, trying to figure out that third offensive tackle. So, all right, there we go. We'll get into what Billy Napier had to say about the scrimmage, and we'll go through a couple news and notes that I was able to gather throughout the first scrimmage as well.
I think for the most part, I was pleased with the scrimmage. I thought we could have in space. We didn't necessarily tackle as well as maybe we would like in the secondary. But I do think that there was a lot of quality football in terms of the precision. The film is cleaner. I do think some of the players we were without affected the quality of the 2s, in my opinion, because of the depth But there's a mixture of lineups out there with those groups. But I think when we put our first group out there, it's starting to look what it's supposed to look like. And then don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a lot of players in that second group that do a really good job. I just think we had a handful of players out that affected the depth, the quality of the scrimmage in that regard.
Very good. Billy Napier's thoughts on the scrimmage, and of course the first big worry that he had. He didn't shy or hide behind it, tackling in space, and oh boy, I mean that's something that in the secondary that we have been accustomed to back there the last few years with Trey Dean and Rashad Torrance back there and their issues and diagnosing and breaking down players in front of them and not being able to tackle very well. Well, we don't know. He said the secondary as a whole could have been some corners. I'm sure safeties are in there as well when it comes to that. And we don't know if it was first team, don't know if it was second team. That was something that, of course, as notes were coming out, being shared, that wasn't necessarily shared behind the scenes, but Billy Napier out there in front of the mic letting us know that tackling in space was an issue. So something worth keeping an eye on, and why you bring in a transfer like RJ Moten there from Michigan as well, and something hopefully he could get better in from what we saw at Michigan. But we'll hopefully get some more clarification on that as we move forward. But Billy Napier not hiding behind the fact of something they struggled in the first scrimmage. And look, that's another thing. It's just a first scrimmage. But hearing that after what we have seen the last couple of years, it has some reservation there, of course. So I like what he said about, the first group's getting further along to where they look like the first group and what the first group should be doing this part of fall camp and after a first scrimmage, what they should be looking like. But I did say, and look, we just went through all the injuries and nothing serious, but kind of just going through it. These players were in non-contact jerseys, but had cleats on and did take part in the scrimmage. Aldous Boardingham, Jonathan Odom, Kelby Collins, but looks like Collins will be out. But he was in cleats yesterday, but Aldous Boardingham, only one I really know out of that group that had some work there. But guys that were in no contact jerseys did not take part in the scrimmage. Scooby Williams, Jason Marshall, Devin Moore, Cam Waits, Lindale Hudson, and Shamar James, of course, who still had that injury scare. He could have been the first big one a couple of weeks ago, but thankfully not. And hopefully he'll be back on the field soon as well. But looking at just that list, I mean, there was a few lists there. Marshall, starter, Devin Moore fighting ones and twos with Kimber, Scooby Williams the same way. So that's where Billy Napier, when he says second team fighting some depth issues, you heard the names right there and maybe why. So also I brought up Cam Waits' name. Good to see him back on the field with that nursing that Achilles injury. Well, Billy Napier did tell us SEC Media Days, I believe, that they expect to get him back at some point in the season. Now he's out there in fall camp on the field recovering from that Achilles injury. So Florida may be getting some depth back on the offensive line at some point in the season. He won't be ready for Utah, but maybe sometime in October we can expect Cam Waits. But good to see him out there. You never know Achilles injuries, especially a guy his size, how fast that will heal. Good to hear that he's back out there and taking that. So the depth of the second team, you heard Napier say, it kind of made it where they were going to struggle a bit and hard to put some things together with the depth concerns right now. So hopefully this team's going to start getting healthier, get on the mend as we're not so far away from game one right now. But looking back at the scrimmage, first team offense versus second team defense, and first team defense versus second team offense. And that led the way for the ones on both sides of the ball to kind of do some good things there. First team defense dominated second team offense, which you just heard Billy Napier say. And look, we know if you're talking about second team offense and we just heard the comments about the offensive line and then the list I just went through of offensive line as well, they're probably a little short on the offensive line. We saw some of that in the spring game as well. So no surprise to hear that the first team defense, as good as we think this defensive front can be, that they're going to go out there and just dominate the second team offensive line right now. That's what they should do. So good to hear that. But first team offense, going back to that, versus the second team defense for most of the part. Mertz did the simple things well in the scrimmage. If you follow me on Twitter or the Gators Breakdown Plus Discord, all the notes were put up there on the Discord yesterday, right after the scrimmage, but also did put some on Twitter. Mertz did the simple things well in the scrimmage, not much down the field. Now that's going to be the biggest question mark for me right now, but Mertz was on fire. Short intermediate, using crossing routes. We saw back at the open practice last week, rollouts to go along with this. So you start taking a look at, what Mertz can do well. It's things Florida could have used last year. Now, different types of quarterbacks. Mertz is not going to go out there and run 60 yards like Anthony Richardson did. So, where's your checks and balances? You get one thing, you take away another. So what does that mean for overall in this offense? But as I said, if you can keep the chains moving, that will go a long way in this offense, and probably what this offense is going to be mostly based on. But down the field is probably something we'll keep an eye on or an ear out for, and then wait to see what the season holds as far as can he start pushing the ball down the field. But with the playmakers Florida has, and Ricky Pearsall and Eugene Wilson and the speed of the other freshmen, get the ball in their hands, and maybe the big plays come from there. You don't have to throw the ball 60 yards in the air down the field, but a 60-yard play can happen if you get the ball in one of these guys' hands and they take it 50 yards after a 10-yard catch. So, yeah, that's we'll see. We'll see where the big plays come from, but for now, it's not down the field from the quarterback spot. No complaint, and that's not a complaint right now, by the way. It's just an observation of what we're hearing. But, plenty of use for the running backs and tight ends. Something else we didn't see a whole lot of last year. Plenty of use of the running backs and the tight ends in the passing game overall. And one such example, and Shannon Snell, of course, former Gator offensive lineman, he put it on Twitter, and then I had a conversation with him not long after that. He threw out there, saw Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne in the backfield together at the same time. And then that play, it was a pass that ended up going to Montrell Johnson. So I think throughout some of these highlights and these videos, and we've seen where some of the wide receivers are in the backfield. And now we're seeing two back sets maybe as part of this offense. Billy Napier's getting a little more creative in this offense for this year. So starting offensive lineman, Barber left tackle, a rotation of, now catch this, Harrison Leonard at left guard. Yes, left guard, not Mazuka. Mazuka was on the right side at right guard. Kingsley in the center right there. George at right tackle. Boardingham and Hanson tight ends, with the other guys not participating out there. There's your two main tight ends for the scrimmage. But interesting, the guard rotation there. Is this just do they feel better about Mazuka on the right side, which he'd be replacing Osiris Torrance from last year? Or is this just hey, just because of rotation, we want to cross train? So that I'm sure that's part of it as well. But could this end up being the starting? Do they see something they like here better instead of the assumed Mazuka on the left and then it being Harris or Leonard on the right side? So on defense, the highlight up front, we'll go back to it one more time. Jack Pyburn, continuing what we've heard throughout camp so far, 3 sacks on the day, going to play a role this year, getting more opportunity now that Justus Boone goes down. But, Tyreek Sapp, probably your starter there right now in that spot. But it will be some rotation, some guys playing some different roles, depending on down and distance and situations, of course. Keep it going. And coverage was good in the secondary for the most part. Combos of Moten, Mitchell, Wilson, Castell ripping with the first team in safety spot. And, of course, Jalen Kimber is the guy who had to step up and at the cornerback spot. Marshall out, Moore out of the scrimmage. Jalen Kimber been having a really good offseason, good fall camp so far. He's going to get plenty of playing time, whether he's cornerback 2 or not. But Devin Moore missing time, Jalen Kimber healthy finally, and taking advantage of that, but also taking advantage of other guys missing their opportunity. So yesterday in the first scrimmage, he's cornerback 1. So Jalen Kimber getting the main reps for the number 1 defense at the cornerback spot right there. So, all right, scrimmage 1 under the books, and unfortunately some good. There was some good there, but unfortunately the news of Justus Boone tearing his ACL in the scrimmage, and man, just unfortunate. I'm kind of bummed about that one, and we'll see where the Gators turn there. But excited to see and unearthed maybe Jack Pyburn and some of these freshmen that Florida brought in as well. Kelby Collins, TJ Searcy up front as well, and some of those guys step up at the same time. Cam James, we'll see. We'll see what it means. But now those guys have to, opportunity is created here. go take advantage of it. All right, guys, that would do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Thanks to, hit that like button one more time if you're right here watching us live. Subscribe if you haven't done so yet. A good audience right here on a Friday afternoon. I hope you guys have a great weekend. We don't have much longer where these weekends are football free, do we? I know I'm counting down the days too, my friends, and ready to see some football, ready for this Florida team to take that trip to Utah. But the weekend coming up, not many Saturdays left without this glorious sport of college football. We'll be here every step of the way. We've got a lot of players to hear from coming up there. So probably next episode, next week, next Monday, Will and I will get back together. We'll hear from RJ Moten for sure, especially Billy Napier's comments. Now, this was before the scrimmage, so we'll hear from Moten. Just a lot to take away from what he had to say. But with Billy Napier's comments of, he wished tackling in space would have been better in the secondary. One player we will hear from that secondary will be RJ Moten. But Tyreek Sapp will probably go back and hear what he had to say as well. Of course, before the injury to Justus Boone, but somebody will definitely want to hear from kind of where he thinks he's at in this point in his career. But Trevor Etienne is also speaking to the media today on this Friday as well. So I know probably where we'll go with the next episode and get Will's thoughts on the quarterback situation and, of course, the unfortunate Justus Boone news as well. So that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter, X at GatorDave_SCC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.